Hey there, and welcome back to Plays Well with Butter. I'm Jess Larson, and today I'm going to show you how to make a recipe that is perfect if you're planning a small-scale Thanksgiving, my Thanksgiving chicken. This oven-roasted whole chicken is the perfect alternative to Thanksgiving turkey. It's slathered in garlic herb butter for classic Thanksgiving flavor, but it's also basted in a savory herb oil that takes everything over the top. It's so juicy, it's seriously flavorful, it gets beautifully golden brown, and it's perfect whether you're planning for a smaller Thanksgiving crowd or you're just someone who really appreciates extra room on your plate for side dishes. You're gonna love it. Aside from our whole chicken, there are two key components that we're gonna wanna prep for this Thanksgiving chicken recipe. We're gonna make a garlic herb butter to slather all over the chicken for classic Thanksgiving flavor, and we're also going to make a savory herb oil that we're gonna baste the chicken with as it roasts. So the first thing we're gonna do is chop a whole bunch of fresh herbs for both the butter and the savory herb oil. So what I have here are fresh rosemary, fresh sage, and fresh thyme. This is kind of a classic poultry herb mix, and oftentimes at the grocery store, they'll actually sell in a clamshell the three combined. So we'll get a good rough chop on our heartier herbs, and then to get the thyme leaves off of the stem, you just grab the stem and pull in the opposite direction, and they come right off. And it's gonna look like a lot of fresh herbs because it is, but you wanna chop them really fine. And the next thing to do is just chop a little bit of garlic. This is gonna go in both the herb butter and the savory herb oil. So with our herbs and garlic chopped and ready to go, it is super easy to come in and mix everything up. So for the butter, I have 4 tablespoons, 1/4 cup unsalted butter, and I've just salted it with some kosher salt. I'm gonna take about 3/4 of these herbs. It seems like a lot, but chicken is such a mild protein that we wanna give it a lot of love with fresh herb flavor. And then I put about half the garlic in the bowl, and I will just mix this together. And this is something that we're gonna slather all over the chicken. Kind of self-bastes the chicken as it roasts, much like how you prepare a Thanksgiving turkey. The next thing we're gonna prep is our savory herb oil, and for ease, we're using a lot of the same ingredients. So we'll start with some olive oil, 3 tablespoons. I like to just prepare this in a jar because you can seal it up. We're going to add in 6 tablespoons, or about 1/3 cup of Worcestershire. Worcestershire is one of my favorite pantry ingredients. It is such a flavor booster because it is like savory, it is sweet, it's sour. And then add in the rest of our garlic and the rest of our fresh herbs. And then all you have to do is seal it up and give it a good shake. Now this is actually something that you wanna make at least a day ahead of time to let all of those flavors meld and infuse together. And I've actually already prepped a version for us that sat overnight on the counter, and it has infused, and it's so good. About an hour before you're ready to start roasting your chicken, you're gonna wanna pull it from the fridge, take it out of the packaging, and let it kind of warm to room temperature. It helps the chicken roast a little bit more evenly and get that beautiful golden brown skin. So here I've got my chicken, it's patted dry with paper towel. I've trimmed off any excess skin or fat, and I'm just gonna take my herb butter and rub it between the meat and the skin of the chicken. There's no pretty way to do this. You really just have to get in there, use your fingers to push the butter, and then what I like to do is use my other hand to spread it along the breast. And this flavors the chicken from the inside out as it roasts, because that butter is gonna melt as soon as it hits the high heat of the oven, and it's gonna infuse the chicken with all of that garlic herb flavor. Flip the chicken over. Our goal here is seasoning as much of the chicken as possible. Our chicken is buttered, and all that is left to do is tuck those wing tips behind so they don't burn as the chicken roasts. And then we're also just gonna tie the legs together. And I sort of wrap it around, making a figure 8, and then tie it into place. All right, those legs are nice and secure, and you'll just trim off any excess wine. And we're going to pop him into a bowl. And then the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use half of our savory herb oil to actually marinate the chicken as the oven preheats. And then just use your hands to kind of toss it together and make sure that every surface of the chicken is nice and coated in that savory herb oil. And as far as prep goes, that's really it. We'll just set this aside, let it marinate at room temperature for about an hour, and we will preheat the oven. One of the secrets is preheating your skillet in the oven as the oven preheats. So be very careful here because that is hot, just came out of a 425-degree oven. We'll place our chicken that's been marinating in that oil right into the skillet. And you want the breast side facing up. So at this point, I'm gonna put my chicken back in the oven, roast it for about 30 minutes at that high temperature, 425. So we're gonna carefully pull it out. And at this point, I'm gonna reduce the oven temperature to 400. And I'm gonna very carefully take the chicken out of the skillet and transfer it to a plate that I have nearby here. And just be very careful of the skillet because it's super hot. We're gonna add some baby potatoes for a nice little built-in side dish. And I just give those a good stir to coat them in the chicken drippings. We'll season those up just a little bit. And then we're gonna very carefully set our chicken right back in the skillet on top of those potatoes. Remember, we reserved some of that savory herb oil. You can use a pastry brush to brush it right over the surface of the chicken, infusing it with even more flavor. And that's it. Be sure to keep that savory herb oil nearby because what I'm gonna do is put the chicken back in the oven and we're gonna roast it at that lower 400-degree temperature for 45 to 60 more minutes, as long as it needs, but we're gonna take it out of the oven every 15 minutes to baste it with more oil. It's not Thanksgiving without gravy, so that's exactly what we're gonna do next. I've carefully transferred my chicken and potatoes off to the side and let the skillet cool down a little bit. What we're gonna do is pour all of those drippings right into something clear so you can see through it. And since these drippings are pure flavor, but there's a bit of fat from all of the butter in the chicken, we're just gonna spoon off about half of that fat. We don't want our gravy to be greasy. And then I'm gonna pour the remaining drippings right back into the skillet for the base of the gravy. Now, medium-low heat, we're gonna heat those drippings back up, and I'm going to add in some flour. And we'll just whisk, whisk, whisk it to get it all combined into a nice roux. I've let this bubble for just a couple of minutes to cook off that raw flour taste. And now we're going to deglaze with some wine. About a half a cup of your favorite dry, unoaked white wine, and we'll whisk, whisk, whisk to create a smooth mixture. Things are looking really good, and at this point I'm just stirring in some chicken stock to get a really nice consistency out of this gravy. And then the last thing I'm gonna stir in, this is completely optional, but just a touch of heavy cream. Since we had all of that Worcestershire in the basting liquid for the chicken, the gravy's a little bit dark and its flavor is really intense. So just the littlest bit of heavy cream is going to lighten up the gravy to a nice lighter color, but it's also gonna round out all of those rich flavors. And at this point, it should start to look a lot like a Thanksgiving gravy. We're just gonna let it simmer for 5-6 minutes until it thickens slightly, and then we'll be ready to carve and serve our chicken. Once you've carved your chicken, all that's left to do is build your ideal Thanksgiving plate, and this plate looks pretty ideal to me. I have had my eye on this piece of chicken since the start. I'm gonna build a little bite with some gravy, some of those potatoes, and go right in. That is so good. The chicken is so tender and juicy, but it has so much rich flavor from that savory herb oil, gravy, and those tender potatoes are just the perfect finishing touch. I promise you, you won't even miss the turkey. So go ahead, grab the full recipe on Plays Well with Butter and give it a try this year. I think you're really gonna fall in love with the ease of preparing a chicken, and it leaves so much extra room on your plate for Thanksgiving side dishes, which are the best part anyway. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe for more recipes that pack a big punch of flavor from Plays Well with Butter. We'll see you next time.